These are 12 things that law school doesn't teach you about being a lawyer. I'm Tiffany Weber. I'm a lawyer and a law firm owner in North Carolina. Let's dive right in. First up is how to manage client expectations effectively. You learn a lot of things in law school, but unless you're in some sort of situation where you get to have client interaction regularly, then you're not really talking to the clients about their expectations. Even if you're working, a summer at a law firm or you've got internships, there are usually other people that are managing those relationships and you're getting assignments. When you're the person managing a client relationship, you've got to be able to also manage their expectations, which are not always reasonable. So don't be afraid to say the unpopular thing or the thing that your client doesn't want to hear, because it will become much harder later if the client had this expectation and you didn't tell them that wasn't possible, to try to set that right. Number 2 is the importance of writing for non-lawyers. Law school hopefully has made you an excellent writer, but the audience is typically other lawyers, either the lawyers in your firm or now judges and or their clerks. So you need to know how to write to people that don't understand the law. So knowing how to take something complicated and distill it to its most important points, or the things that matter the most to your client. Or if you're trying to, let's say you're trying to do business development, you're trying to educate other people to, bring in new clients. Making concepts simple, or even if they can't be simple, making them understandable without using jargon. Number 3 is mastering time management and prioritization. So yes, you have a lot to juggle in law school, but unless you are working another job during that time, for a lot of students, that is your job, is being a student. I worked full time and went to law school at night, so I kind of got an extra dose of trying to juggle and balance everything that made it, once I became a lawyer and the only thing I had to do was be a lawyer, it felt simple. But you've got to be able to juggle the deadlines of, how many classes do you take a semester? 4 or 5? You're going to hopefully have a lot more than 5 cases that you're working on. So you have to be able to juggle the deadlines and know what is the most important thing. And a lot of times the most important thing and the priority thing to do is not the thing that you like to do the best. So you can't just pick the stuff that you like the best. You got to think about how it all works together. Number 4 is, this kind of ties into expectations, but it goes a little bit deeper, is how to handle and mitigate your client's anxiety. And that's because in many practice areas, clients don't come to you because everything's going great. A lot of adversarial practice areas are, there's a problem and a bad one. Your clients are naturally going to be anxious to some degree. You've got to be able to manage that. And this is where, we're attorney and counselor at law. The counselor really comes into play here. Of course, it is a business relationship, but you have to be able to empathize with their situation, because while for us it is a job, for them it is their life. And if you cannot make those connections and try to, lay out the steps, this is what we're going to try to do for you, and this is what we hope the outcomes will be. If outcome 1 happens, this is what reality will be. Outcome 2, just lay it out there, explain it in a way, empathize with them, try to connect to help mitigate their anxiety. And I think a lot of times the anxiety mitigation comes with proactive communication, letting clients know ahead of time, this is what's next. And after that, these 3 things could happen, and these are the branches of where we'll go depending on the decision that is made. Number 5, how to track and maximize billable hours. Like I said, I worked full time in law school and not in anything related to law. So my first time encountering billable hours was as an attorney. I'm a person that tries to be really diligent, but it's still really difficult to get used to tracking your billable hours. Not only tracking, that's, a new thing in and of itself for many people, but maximizing. I would have in my mind, well, I think I took way too long to work on this, so I'm not going to report all the time that I spent on it. That's bad for a couple of reasons. 1, the person who is managing you can't assess how you're doing, truly, because maybe you didn't spend too much time on it. Maybe you spend exactly the right amount of time on it, or they expected that you would take longer and they're pleased with the amount of time you took. But if you're not transparent about that, then they can't help you get better. If it took you 3 hours and you're reporting 2 because you think you took too long, then they're going to start wondering, where are these extra hours in the day going? Like, why aren't they working? What are they doing? So that's one thing, is management. But also, a lot of times for especially new associates, the partner's going to write down your bill anyway, depending on the arrangement with the client and what the client's expectations are. So, all right, you worked on it 3 hours, you only told them about 2, and the partner's like, okay, 2, I need to cut that down a little bit. We'll only charge them for 1.5. Okay, well now the amount of time that you spent really got reduced in half, and only billed for half of the time that you actually spent. So it's really important that you report it all. And if you're spending too much time, then the person who's managing you is going to help you get faster, or tell you, hey, it shouldn't have taken that long. And then you can work on improving your speed. As far as tracking, if your firm allows it, there are a lot of passive time tracking tools. I was allowed to use those tools, so they helped me catch everything. Even phone calls, as far as the amount of time that I was spending on it, and accurately. So I wasn't having to, at the end of the day, how long was that phone call, etc. Number 6 is that clients don't always listen to you, which, I'm surprised now that I was ever surprised at that in the beginning, because of course they don't. If they did, then a lot of times there wouldn't be situations that have to be fought over. But I have a lot of clients that are business people, and they'll make a business decision even if I don't think it's, even if it's got some risk that I've told them about. But it's my job to lay out the options and tell them what I think they should do or not do, and the risks of doing certain things. But, you may think, oh, I'm the one with the law degree. Surely they'll listen to what I tell them. No, not always. Number 7, how to build and retain a client base. In law school, I think you have relatively few opportunities to work on things like this, because, again, if you're not working at a firm, what client base are you building? Of course you work on relationships and hopefully build your network for the future. But when it comes to growing your list of clients, and depending on your situation, like I'm a real estate attorney and I own my firm, so it's really important that I keep growing clients and retain them. And I didn't learn how to do that in law school. So that's something that you have to refine and figure out the way that works the best for you, whether it's by media, educating, going to do seminars, going to Chamber of Commerce events, whatever it may be. Number 8, you will be better at your job if you know how your cases work from beginning to end. And that's including the administration stuff. This might not be popular because if you've got staff, that's their job is to do those other portions of the case. You may wonder, well, why should I bother learning it? Or it's a waste of my time to learn it. But I am better as a real estate attorney because I know from the very beginning, once a file comes into my office, to once, we get the final title opinion issued and the final title policy, I know how every piece of it works. And knowing how everything works together and what has to happen and when makes me better at my job. Same thing with litigation, when it, from the very beginning, knowing every piece of the process. So that's, like it or not, in my opinion, you will be better if you know it all. Number 9 is how to evaluate and manage risk. So not just for your clients, but also for yourself, especially if you become partner or you own your own law firm. So I mentioned this earlier with clients not always listening to you, but a lot of times it's just a risk tolerance decision, in that, yeah, they may choose to do something that's not 100% perfect safe, but they may have an extremely high risk tolerance, or they can afford to, if they're challenged, if it's a nominal fine to them, then they may be willing to take the risk to do the thing that you told them not to do. But again, evaluating the risk and helping a client manage their risk is really important. In law school, you think about it a little bit and you think about all of the different scenarios and the hypotheticals and the fact patterns. But most of the time, your final exams aren't, well, your client's not going to listen to you anyway, even though you've advised them to do this. So what are their risks? What will really happen? Number 10, the emotional resilience to handle losing, or, not just in the courtroom, but, losses. You're thinking in law school that you're learning about theory, you're learning how to write, you're learning how to research. Usually in class, if you lose, there's not a consequence. But in real life, if you lose, there is a consequence to your client and to you. And you can't, I guess there are probably some people who have never lost, but it's not very common. For most people, you can't win everything. So you have to learn from those losses, and you have to learn how to move forward from those losses so that you can, one, not diminish your self-worth, but, continue to improve and get ready and better for the next one. Number 11 is managing your office politics. This one, since I worked full-time and then went to law school at night, I, of course, had jobs before becoming a lawyer, but entering into, law school, but then also coming into the workforce as an attorney, I was kind of surprised at how many other attorneys had never had a job before. So their very first job in their whole life is being a lawyer, and it's kind of an important one. So they, in addition to learning how to practice law, not just think like a lawyer, they're learning how to work. And by that I mean dealing with other people that you don't necessarily agree with all of the time, different personalities that you don't, like people that you maybe wouldn't necessarily want to hang out with outside of work, but you have to work together in order for your project to be successful. So that's not really something that you have to be confronted with in class, because you have no obligation outside of class to work with the people that you're in class with. And then finally, the business side of law. I came into law and, becoming a partner and now owning the firm with a really strong interest in business. And I kind of always knew that I wanted to either be partner or own a law firm. But for a lot of people that get to that point, not necessarily interested in business, but because they're really good at being a lawyer and they're really good at getting clients, they may not be thinking about resource allocation, your clients' cost sensitivities, what does it feel like to hire and fire people? And then how do you find the people to hire? How do you set a forecast and budget and, make a strategic plan? So those are all the things that, people forget a lot of times, that a law firm is still a business, and you have a whole set of business operations in addition to the legal operations. So there you have it. Those are my 12 things that law school did not teach me about being a lawyer.